Before we begin, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos.
Why this family willingly lives in isolation 11 months of the year. David and Romy Atchley lived totally off the grid in the Alaskan wilderness for decades, embracing a strict, self-sufficient lifestyle. After raising their children, mostly secluded from the hustle and bustle of the city, they finally opened up about what it was really like to leave the modern world behind. The Atchleys are the only residents anywhere along the 250-mile stretch of the Newitna River. Residential areas are far from this woodsy terrain, but living way out there was a life Romy always dreamed of. Growing up, I was really interested in living off the land, the then 45-year-old Romy told Jenny Brocky, host of SBS Australian's documentary program Insight in 2018. I had this desire to have space around me and really think about life. David and Romy have two boys, Zach and Sky. Understandably, Zach moved to Fairbanks, Alaska when he was just 17 years old, as he craved civilization. Sky, who was 16 years old as of 2020, still lived with his parents. While Zach clearly felt secluded and off the beaten track, his father never felt that way. I never considered myself as isolated. I knew we were remote, but for me it was about having the quiet and hearing my own mind without the noise of the town, said David. Though David may not consider him and his family to be living in isolation, they live almost 100 miles from the nearest town, Ruby, which has only 160 residents. So yeah, they're not exactly social butterflies. Out of the nearly 20 years spent living in the thick of the Alaskan forest adjacent to the river, only a few people have visited the Atchley's remote cabin, one being photographer Ed Gold, who documented their unique way of living via photographs for BBC. But living purely off the land can only last so long, as the Atchleys aren't ancient hunters in loincloths and fur capes. Once a year, they take one massive trip to the grocery store and stock up on necessities. We buy everything for a year, and we buy all the supplies and we box. They barge it down the Ruby for us, and it usually takes a couple of trips. But once it's here, you're good for the year, David explained. The extreme couponers are surely impressed. Sky doesn't seem to have the same mindset as his older brother did, who likely felt stranded, considering he's completely content with the fact that he's been homeschooled his entire life and doesn't plan on leaving the quietness of the Alaskan wilderness anytime soon. A lot of other teenagers would probably think it's not cool to be around your parents, Sky explained via Skype. Yes, though they're disconnected from the rest of civilization, the Atchleys did succumb to getting internet installed in October 2017. When you live this close to each other in the middle of the woods and you've been here for a long time, they're not just your parents, they're your best friends because you're all alone with them, Sky continued. He's bonded with his parents in ways normal teenagers could never understand. Though Sky said he's happier here than I would be anywhere else, he estimates he only spends a week and a half in contact with peers over the internet each year, which is rough. The minuscule amount of interactions Sky has had with people his own age throughout his life has forced him to mature with great speed. Growing up with my parents, sometimes kids seem a little childish, Sky admitted about his peers. They care about things that aren't that important sometimes, he continued. The fact of the matter is that Sky and his family live a very different life from most modern Americans, so it's no wonder that he can't relate to his peers in regards of minor or unimportant issues. Remember when we said that the Atchleys don't hunt wild animals in loincloths and fur capes? While this is true, they do hunt for meat on their land, just minus the caveman ensemble, often pursuing black bears, wolves, rabbits, ducks, and beavers. Yum. The Atchleys also traverse the Alaskan forest, which they call their backyard, to forage for lingonberries and rose hips to make their delicious homemade jam. I'm not very fond of the food in town, Sky hilariously said of his annual outings to restaurants. We guess there's nothing like mom's cooking. Sky followed that up by pondering about whether or not he has stronger than normal taste buds. When he, Sky, gets to town and wants a sandwich, for someone to hand him white bread, it doesn't seem like bread to him after eating homemade whole wheat, explained Romy. Amazingly, living off the land and using solar power cost the family just $12,000 annually. Life without materialistic clutter is pretty darn cheap. David is the family's breadwinner, making moolah by selling tanned hides, building log cabins, or working in a nearby gold mine. When it comes to medical needs, the Ashleys rely on various books on medicine and first aid kits they keep on hand. Overall, they've learned to deal with health-related issues as they've come, but in the case of a real emergency, David said they'd have to call in a light aircraft for help. It's pretty intense out here in general, but you learn how to put it in the back of your mind and only deal with what's happening instead of the fears of what could happen, David relayed. Though he was initially referring to health-related affairs, he then went into emotional complexities. When you're isolated like this with each other, your relationship is everything, David explained. During the decades of living out here, you spend a lot of time working on your relationship because in isolation you truly create your own reality, he said. When you have the ability to make your wife slump or make her smile, what are you going to choose? That makes the rules for us, David continued. We're all just trying to get along and we all love each other. That's a mentality we could all benefit from, no matter what lifestyle we adopt. We couldn't imagine the mental, physical, and emotional challenges that come with living off the grid and seeing the same few faces every single day, even if you love those faces. But the Ruiz family might know a thing or two about said challenges. Minimalistic living in the midst of Mother Nature's gift ain't always easy. Please share this with your friends and family.